Today, our topic is going to be related to a cultural issue that I think is misrepresented. And maybe some people don't understand the totality of the effect of it, but I'm going to address that right here. So the topic is going to be about rap music, explicitly the gangster rap music, the rap music that's infiltrated with cursing, drug dealing, the degradation of women, you name it. You know, I think that culture, that hip hop culture, has definitely influenced our young people, and it has been a true detriment to society. And I'm not just saying this because it's something I read in a book. I'm saying this because I have personal knowledge of this. I have personal experiences that have gotten me to this conclusion of believing that this is not good for our children, and hip hop music is killing us. Literally. I'm not even saying no pun intended. Literally, hip hop music is influencing young people to kill each other, young people to treat women with disrespect, young people to act outside of character and to be enraged and to hate other people. This is exactly what's happening to young people. So I'm explaining in a few different topics. So the first topic is just my own personal experience. You know, I grew up listening to rap music. Almost every single genre that I listened to had something to do with rap, had something to do with explicit gangster rap. And it influenced and it impacted my mind so much so to, believe it or not, people don't even believe me when I say this. This is a part of my testimony, is that I used to sag my pants. I had gold teeth in my mouth, and I got Young Savage tattooed on my stomach right here. It's because of the mindset and the culture of hip hop music had me thinking that this was the appropriate way to dress. This was the appropriate way to act. This was my role model. And in today's society, we have accepted it. Another aspect of hip hop music, the rap culture, gangster rap, that I think we're avoiding to address. For instance, let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. So the President of the United States made a statement that many people will believe is derogatory towards women, that it was inappropriate. I don't think anybody who heard that would think anything different. And America was outraged. America was upset about that. And America voiced their opinion about thinking that was wrong. And the President of the United States apologized for it, which I accept his apology. But this is the thing that I feel like that there's no apology in hip hop music. Every song, every lyric, 90% of the rappers are saying things that are even or what the president said and worse, with no apology. And they're not saying it 11 years ago. They're saying it currently, today. Your kids who are listening to rap are listening to him say, these rappers say the same thing that you were outraged about the president saying, times 20. And we don't talk about those things. We're not outraged about those things, which is troubling to me, because we should be identifying this language that's being used. We should be identifying this culture that's infiltrating our society, and not just be outraged when one person say it, but be outraged at a culture that has way more influence. Way more people listen to hip hop music than would ever listen to the President of the United States. Period. It just will never happen. So there's another misconception that we have, is that the effect, right? Some people will say, oh, rap music is just music, right? It don't really affect. It's just people saying stuff. It don't affect me. But I'm gonna tell you this, and this is like I said, this is from my own personal experience. When you live in Beverly Hills, rap music don't affect you, right? When you live in a gated community, or you live in somewhere above the poverty line, you live in middle class America, or you living in the upper echelons of America, what they say in these rap songs don't resonate with you. It sound good, it's cute, it's got a good beat, it's cool, it's trendy to you. When you live in the hood, this is like the gospel. You are seeing this rap music play out in front of you every day. You are seeing, degrading women as a topic of discussion in almost any environment when you live in the hood. You are almost considered a coward if you don't treat women or act the way these rappers are acting. If you're not speaking the lingo that rappers are speaking, you are nobody. And it affects people every day in these communities, especially in low-income communities.
Breakdown Friday, Joseph Ward, Professor Carl Tone Jones, Patrick Irvin. We are back here for another one. Thank you all for the love and support that you all continue to give this channel. Today, the question on the table is, did hip hop or rap or gangster rap or trap drill, did this music, did rap music, did hip hop music destroy the black community? Or was our community already destroyed? And this is just the music that was we were expressing, the destruction around us. So that's the question on the table. You saw the video, Officer Tatum. I think he had some valid points, but we're going to break some of these things down and see how this really affects us. Because this video, he recorded this video, I think 5 years ago. So in 2023, how is it? How is hip hop music today? Is it positive? Is it negative? How is it really affecting us? But overall, did hip hop destroy our community? Patrick,
Yo,
did hip hop destroy our community?
no, uh, not single handedly. Um, I think I think going to the clip. Well,
Mm-hmm.
that's Officer Tatum, right?
Right.
Um, I think he touched on a lot of things, but at least from that clip, it doesn't seem like he has a thorough enough understanding of what he's talking about to really be talking about it. Um,
Okay.
but the shorthand answer to my question is, did 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 hip hop destroy the black community? No, it did not. Not by itself, but it is a tool or a weapon that I think has been used to expose vulnerabilities and attack certain pressure points in the community.
Okay. So what what type of weapon is it? Like, how has it become the weapon in your opinion?
Well, for me, that gets into a larger discussion about how culture works, how
Mm-hmm.
culture is shifted. We start talking about things like the Overton window in the political spectrum, which I think also holds a lot of weight in cultural perspectives. But I think music, we had this conversation all the time. Music is influenced by the people that create it, who are then also influenced by the
Mm-hmm.
music itself. I
I
think
think that's where we are now at this point.
right. I think the way music shifts a culture is that it slowly gets people to consider things that may have at once been considered taboo, that might now not be as taboo. And so you start moving that window of acceptable, what's acceptable and what's not, closer and closer to this the closer and closer to things that people that are locked in on one spectrum or the other would view as outrageous. It's a subtle shift. But it is a shift that happens, and I'm trying to simplify it. But I do think people that control the music that's put out there, that control the narrative, do have the ability to influence what's acceptable and what's not in terms of the cultures that primarily consume that music. Now, the flip side of that is also we know the primary consumers of hip hop music, the ones that, the people that are driving the money behind it are white people.
Right.
So then that brings us into another conversation about, well, if hip hop is poisonous, if it's toxic, where's their immunity coming from? And so
So
that's why I said the conversation about culture, it gets into a bunch of other conversations that need to be had around this topic of hip hop. And that's another reason why I said, even with the way Officer Tatum is talking about it, he's touching on some things that need to
mm-hmm.
be touched on, but
Mm-hmm.
he's not touching on them in a way that gives me the impression that he should be the one trying to touch him. You know what I'm
So
saying? Like,
I,
he ain't
and
married to the game. He just a stranger trying to cop a feel.
I get that. I get that. So Basic, we agree on that. We agree. We both. I think all three of us agree on that. But it's the conversation that I'm picking from it. So yeah, we on the same page on all that. But the conversation though is, talking about the effect of the music. So, like you said, and we're gonna put a pin in this because we're gonna come back. But like you said, we have this specific genre of music that was created by Black people in America, and white people primarily are the drivers behind what music is produced and the consumers of the music. But the bulk of the negative effects of the music are seen in the Black community, and more specifically, the poor Black communities. So, to you, PC, in your opinion, do you think hip hop destroyed the Black community?
No. I think the Black community has been destroyed. I don't think the Black community ever got to a point where it wasn't destroyed. The Black community, we may have had some. We may have had some moments of peace in the Black community. We may have had some moments of prosperity, but for the most part, there's never been a stable Black community in America. So, and when you consider that we have never had an era of peace in America where Black people were actually just left alone to build without outside influences, then it wasn't that it could. I give Black people credit for being resilient and stand in the tide, but I think eventually that resilience wears down. And we talk about it a lot when we talk about the demoralization of a people, where they just look like they start to give up the fight. I think that's where we are right now, and this current era of hip hop is sort of is a reflection of that. So I think what we're seeing is uh, art imitating life, and then art influencing life, like Patrick was saying. You know, and when I think about the influences of music, this is not a new tactic to influence the culture. Back in the Roaring '20s, when when you had designers who couldn't sell clothing, they couldn't sell shoes, they couldn't sell new hats, they couldn't sell new coats because back then people were operating from a place of functionality. So if my coat is still good, why do I need to go out and buy a new coat? They started putting superstars in these particular cars. They started putting superstars in this fancy attire, and they were utilizing that to influence people to, if you want to live like a superstar, you're going to need this new coat. That's when mink coats started coming out. If you want to live like a superstar, then you're going to have to dress in this particular suit. If you want to be a superstar, if you want to live the life of the rich and famous, then this is when you do. And that's sort of that impacted how people were marketed to, how all these trends were marketed. So if we fast forward, you go to 1954, right at the time where the the Brown versus Board of Education case was coming up in the Supreme Court. You had the United States Department of Commerce do a study in a documentary called "How to Sell the Negro," and they were arrogant enough to actually make a damn documentary and put it on TV to talk about how they knew that they can influence Black people with big names and this, that, and the other. See, once you get to the place where you can influence people, the method stays the same. You just change what you influencing them with, and that's one of the things I think that we're seeing now. Now you talk about did rap destroy, like not rap, but did hip hop destroy the Black community? Well, let's look at it like this: when King Von first started rapping, he was already a mass murderer. He just utilized rap because he saw it as a way to sort of like mock the people he was performing drills on, and so that created a genre that along with Chief Keef out of Chicago created the genre of drill rap here in America. when you think about what that did, that wasn't hip hop. That was gangsters who decided to be murderers. I mean, gangsters who decided to be rappers and utilize the music. Now, one of the things I say the influences is these guys didn't have to go through the loops that we had to go through if we were performing. If me, you, and Patrick was a group back in like 2020 or even before that, right, in the 90s, we would have to shop our deal, our mixtape to somebody, hope a DJ would play it in the club and it would pick up. We would have to go to a radio station and pray that somebody would put our joint on the radio, and then the next thing you know, it would pick up, and then we would get a call from a label saying they want to sign us and things that they don't have to do this no more. These cats straight from Twitter, straight from YouTube, straight from Instagram, straight from TikTok. They go straight to it and they profit off of it. But now they have a direct line to the children. There's no buffers now.
Yeah.
There's no buffer. There's no if we want to know what our favorite entertainer, our favorite hip hop artist is talking about, all we have to do is follow them on Twitter, follow them on Instagram, follow them on TikTok, whatever, and we'll know what they're saying up to the minute. Hell, the last president, the one before this one, didn't have a press secretary. Was press secretary is practically useless because he was tweeting to the people. They were literally having meetings talking about how can I take his phone from him? We can't shut him up. And so now there's no buffer. Back in, you talk about 30 years ago, you had to read a magazine, an article in the magazine to know what Tupac was saying about Biggie. To know what that there was an East Coast, West Coast beef and things of that nature, which wasn't, but it was actually generated in the magazine. But you had to read up on that stuff by buying a magazine. You didn't have it in the palm of your hand like we have today. And so what's happening is we're seeing the direct influence of these things. And I'm just gonna say one more thing, right? What we really don't get is the psychology of it all. If you put something to a banging beat, that's what's going to draw the attention and the minds of people that are listening to it. Like that situation that's going on in Jacksonville, the beatbox remix. Everybody was out here doing the dance and, doing the dance and to the beat, singing the lyrics, not paying attention to the fact that they were naming people who were actually murdered in a gang war. But the beat was hitting. That's the psychology of it all. Because I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead. No, finish up.
The psychology of it all is if we play this over and over again, eventually the words itself, your subconscious will pick up on the words because you're being hypnotized by the words. You're being hypnotized to be desensitized to the murder and the killing and things of that nature. You be desensitized to the graphic nature that we see in these videos and the discussions and their back and forth beats. You're desensitized to the fact that, wow, that's a 30-year-old woman grinding and twerking on a 10-year-old boy. We're desensitized to it all because the beat is slamming, and all we care about is bopping to the beat. And psychologically, subconsciously speaking, we're digesting and ingesting all of the negative stimuli from those particular from the music.
Right. So I don't believe hip hop destroyed the community. I believe, like both of you said, it was a tool that has been used to help get us to where we are today, but it wasn't the sole factor. But I also ask a question. What was the conditions of Black America in 1976? The year or what was going on around that time? What were the conditions that this music was created in? Was this music created in positive conditions or negative conditions? And that's a question that's on the floor. Like what was the culture like? What was, because we talking the South Bronx 1976. So what was the culture like? What was the conditions like in the South Bronx in 1976 when this music was created? Because we know party. It was created as party music. You know, people in that area looking to express themselves in a specific way within the environment that they was in. So, and I'm asking you, PC, because I know it by what
Oh
I've
man,
studied, but not just that, but you are older, so you have more of a direct experience with it. But you growing up in North Philly, so you've actually been to these areas. I ain't never been to these areas, so that's why I'm like asking you, like, what was that? What was the conditions of the South Bronx in 1976?
well, I mean, I think I was 2 years old then, but the the conditions was the recovery from what looked like a third world country. All right, you had a lot of buildings that were mysteriously burnt down in the Bronx. A lot of high rises. You had a lot of poverty. The Bronx was considered the jungle. They called it the Bronx Zoo because it was that wild out there. And like you said, Philadelphia and New York are like sister cities. We had similar situations here. Old warehouses and old factories that people would go into sometime into the park. They would and we would have the parties in the park. We would have the parties in the in these buildings, and a lot of it was because black people weren't black people weren't really allowed to go into the discos. So the partying took place um, anywhere we could go, and it was more so just a place to hang out, a place to go party. I mean, you did have a lot of gang warfare going on in both cities at the time. Um, and so, like, if you really want to understand what the culture was like, just look at the movie Beat Street. Beat
That's
Street
what I'm
gives you a
saying.
good rundown of the culture, where for the most part, I mean, you had your urban strife and whatever, but it wasn't. And if hip hop wasn't, when you heard hip hop was about uh, just basically, having a good time,
Right,
vibing with
right,
one another.
right.
Um, and yeah, once in a while something would go down because look at where you are. You know what I'm saying?
But
But it was a place where we gathered and we were able to generate um, a culture. It was actually a culture that was
right.
generated, based on the circumstances of that time and based on the fact that we wanted to have a place where we can go and not be bullied and not have to deal with the racism that went on in those discos and clubs that we weren't allowed to go into.
So and right. So, but like you said, a culture was developed. And when this culture was developed, parts of this culture that were developed were destructive and negative. Because that's the environment that it came out of. Because we're talking about party music for people to go somewhere to have fun. They couldn't go to the discos, but it was also something better than banging all the time, or being in the negativity all the time. So, and I know from the documentaries and things that I've seen when they show the South Bronx, I think hearing KRS-One and all the rappers at the time, describe it as looking like a war happened, like a post-war scene, right? So, party music came out of this. These are some of the seeds of this party music, this hip hop music. Also, things that you all said. You was talking about gangsters being the ones who are making the music now. Yes, that's true, but that's always been true. That's not always been true as to the degree that it is now. But Easy E was in the streets. Suge Knight was in the streets. Snoop was in the streets. A lot of some of these earlier rappers were in the streets. And yes,
Well,
Jay-Z, and before it got to the time to where it's as destructive right now. And but you still had these elements of this crime that was in hip hop.